So one of the things students often struggle with when they come to college is reading and taking notes. And so this is just a short video to kind of give you some tips and pointers. If you're still struggling with reading academic textbooks or taking notes either in class or from reading or other class activities, I would encourage you to contact the study. They do some workshops there. And the Counseling Center is also offering some other various workshops throughout the semester, and you can check their schedule as well. So a lot of times when we're reading, we tend to be reading books for fun, whether they be fiction or nonfiction. It's something we're interested in, or it's a good novel that we want to read. And so we kind of take a very relaxed approach to that type of reading. But that is not the type of reading we do in college, particularly when we're looking at textbooks. Novels and textbooks are written in very different styles, and we need to take that into consideration when we're reading them. So rather than the passive reading that we do for a novel, we need to be very active readers when we're looking at textbooks. This includes reading short sections, doing a mental summary, writing notes, perhaps even saying what kind of questions could be asked about this particular topic, making a list of terminology we need to know, summarizing things into our own words, which may include also drawing sketches or graphs to kind of summarize that information. So when you're doing active reading or you're in class, you're going to be taking notes. And when you take notes frequently, we just go into class and start writing with no real thought to the structure of those notes. And sometimes that's okay if it's something that's very simple, but if this is going to be part of a bigger course, it might be a good idea to have some organization in your notes as you take them so that they're much more useful when you go back and study them. And so one method of doing this is the Cornell note-taking method, and this is basically laying out your paper so that you kind of sort your information as you go along. Now what you'll notice is there's a section here at the top where you can put your name, the class, and the class date. And then there's a section on the left, and they call this the Q column. A lot of times you may not fill that in during class, you might, but this is where you're going to put main ideas, or if you have questions, you can also write those in that region. The main part that you'll actually be using in class is this note-taking area, and that's where you're going to be writing your notes. And a couple of tips here. One is writing your lecture notes. Make sure you use short sentences or phrases. I wouldn't actually write out every word. Make any list of terminology. Abbreviations are very helpful. For example, in chemistry, I frequently use RXN to be reaction. So even something as simple as that is going to make life easier. Now in chemistry we use lots of symbols, so I would never write out the word hydrogen in my notes. I can always just write out H for hydrogen, C for carbon. And so knowing those symbols is yet another way to kind of help you abbreviate things as well. And so make sure you use abbreviations though that you can understand and that you don't forget them later. It may mean that at the front of your notebook you keep a kind of a little cheat sheet of the abbreviations you've used in your notes. You do want to skip some lines between different topics in case you need to add in some more information later, or you forgot something in class and you want to look up something in your book. That way you've got room to write that down. So that's going to go over here in this note-taking area. And at the bottom, this is ideally something you're going to do as soon as you can after class. It doesn't have to be immediately, but the sooner the better. And you're going to go back through your notes. If you had any questions, you can get those written down here, but then you're going to summarize that information. What was the important parts? So now as you're going back through your notes for class, if you need to find something, you can just look at your summaries and you know that information in more detail is written on that page. So this is a great way to put things into your own words, and that's also going to help you process that information and get into something that you can understand better. So this just shows an example of somebody using the Cornell Note method. Notice a couple of things here. We've got our header, we've got the date and the course and what sections are being covered, and we've got the topic that's being covered. They don't have their name on here, but you would, if it's keeping in your notebook, you might not need to put your name there. And then we have our notes. So this is their notes from the lecture over here. And notice a couple of things. One, we've got blank lines here, or underlined headings here for the different topics. They kind of went past the definitions here, so they left some space here and space here, and giving this list. So it said 6 different levels, and then they wrote that list of 6 things, and then wrote some other notes down here, some other terminology that they need to know. And so over here, and they probably did this after class, is they add some questions here. Basically, what question do my notes answer over here? And so this is a good way to kind of try to think about what questions might be asked about this topic so you can write those questions down. So basically you're kind of practicing writing exam questions, and then this is the information that answers it. And then down here we have our summary. Again, just a couple of sentences to summarize the information, mainly to put things in your own words. Now notice they say this is not on every page because sometimes you'll have a couple of pages for one topic, and so you might need to summarize at the end of every little kind of subsection depending on the material that's being covered. But having this summary is important because rewriting things in your own words will help you better understand the material. And so this is just a brief introduction. There are lots of pre-done templates on the Cornell note-taking method online, or you can simply draw the lines on your paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but what you do want to do is make sure you have some strategy for taking notes other than I have a piece of paper, I'm going to write on it, and all my notes are in one notebook and everything is kind of a mishmash of information. So as you're doing a reading, make sure you go through, write notes, write questions, and then summarize that information.